newbies, guys. So as we go along, if there's any questions, Julia, do you mind? I guess I'll move maybe this to a different window too.
Yeah, I'll keep an eye on the chat, and I'll just I'll interrupt if the questions are like a good thing to like interrupt flow with.
Yeah. Like, yeah, okay. Let's start with the first one then. So comparison operators, strict equality. What is strict equality? What if these two values are equal and of the same type? How do we return true? So in JavaScript, we have types, and JavaScript is different than a lot of programming languages where you don't actually write the types. Like if you're in, a lot of C-based languages, you might say like int, a equals 2 or 3, type 3. But in JavaScript, it's all implicit. So things are JavaScript kind of figures out what the type is for you. But it does have some things that check for types to make sure that your data matches up. So we're going to write a function that takes two values, a and b, as arguments, returns true if the two values are equal and of the same type. Okay, let's start with, this is the function, my function. Now, I'm curious, Julia, how much kind of detail do you want me to go into on just like basic JavaScript syntax, function, declaration, and all of that?
I would just talk through it. I feel like we get so many people with so many different levels.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Some people might need a little extra.
Then yeah, I'll just go. I'll go ground up. So when you write a function in JavaScript, you have to declare it with the function keyword. That's kind of the traditional way. Then you write the name of the function, and then you have these parentheses, and then you have curly brackets. Those are the curly brackets. And that in here defines like, code and logic and whatever. And you might return something, or maybe you just do something. But I see some questions rolling in and I get distracted, but we're gonna keep going. So what you could also do as you declare a function is add parameters. So, A, B, C, X, and you do stuff with those. Okay, so with that out of the way, let's jump into the function. Okay, let's jump into the function and make this. So what this challenge is going to do is kind of evaluate our test cases. So we want to make it pass. If we have this function, we're passing in 2 and 3 for A and B. We need it to be returning false because those aren't the same, guys. If we have 3 and 3, it's going to be true because those are the same. What if we have 1 and then 1 in quotes? Well, it wants to be false because this isn't really the same thing. It's a string. This is integers, or really in JavaScript, we just talk about numbers. And this is a string, so it's just text. And then if we have these two, 10 and 10, they are strings and they have the same characters. So we do want to return true for that. Okay, so let's go ahead and jump into it. So they need to be equal. How do we say that? Like maybe if, A is equal to B, return true. Else we're going to return false. Cool. And then also we need to do semicolons. Don't forget the semicolons. Okay, so the thing, Julia, is I'm so used to software that code editors that just format everything for you. So I'm very lazy, and I apologize. My code is a little sloppy looking.
I feel like this is like real life code. Is it always beautiful? Maybe not.
Yeah, it's real world. Yeah, right. These are the streets of code.
Street code, I love it.
Yeah, this is street code. Not that ivory tower code. So if this looks pretty good, right? So this in JavaScript, when you do comparison, if we did something like this, this just means we're actually assigning the value of B to A. So that's not really good. Comparison things are like this, or maybe it'd be like, oh, it doesn't equal that. That's the exclamation mark. Means this does not, A does not equal B, sort of. But let's test this out. Looks pretty good, right? Oh, I'm so bad. Okay, let's go back. Oh, okay. So in JavaScript, if you do 2 equals, you're actually just saying these 2 values are equal, but not of the same type. So it's kind of a loose equality. If we did, let's see what kind of, it doesn't tell us which ones failed, but I assume that this might return true, okay? But we need it to return false because JavaScript's going to be like, well, they're kind of equal. It'll kind of do a type conversion basically of 1 to the integer 1. Okay, we know what we need to do. We need to do 3 equals signs. That is telling JavaScript we're saying A and B are the same value and the same type. All right, I think this looks pretty good. Let's submit it. Cool, it worked. But now let's look at the code and think if we could simplify it. So in JavaScript and in a lot of programming languages, this is all evaluated like in place. And basically what I'm saying is we're sort of saying we could take this statement and just return it because it's just going to evaluate it here. And this is going to evaluate to true. So why don't we, instead of doing this if and then return true and then return false, we could really shorten the amount of code we're shipping and just return that. Let's try that. Great, it worked. Cool. Okay. I see so many questions going on. I guess you're kind of fielding some of these, Julia.
There's just people are putting their code in here and stuff. Some people are coding along, which is really cool. Definitely recommend if you guys can and you're at the level to try and like write your own code, post it in the chat, because there's some good conversation happening in here too.
Oh, I see people talking about arrow functions, right? Okay, so yeah, let's look at that. So this declaration, and I don't know what this code editor's kind of JavaScript level, if it's on ES, the latest ES 2021, but another way to write a function, and this is kind of what you often see, is with an arrow function. So an arrow function is defined with the arrow and basically this. But to declare an arrow function, you can't just use the function keyword. You have to assign it to, and you could use variable. But most modern JavaScript, for a long time now, you'll see the constant keyword, which is a scope declaration. So reduces the amount of memory overhead. So you want to use constant for now. That's what you want to use. You would use let as another keyword if you were going to reassign this to a different value later. But with functions, that probably won't happen. So stick with const, and then this is the same thing. Well, let's see how it evaluates it. Ooh, doesn't like that. Doesn't like it. Okay, so we'll stick with this kind of syntax here. Now I'm just a perfectionist, so I want it to go back. Great. All right.
So Mike just asked, wait, functions can be variables / constants with like a mind blown emoji.
Yeah. So in JavaScript, everything in a way is a function, or kind of an object function combination. So you could like a function can return a function. You could maybe say variable, or you could return another function, and this would be kind of a an anonymous function. So there's a lot of that. So we can get into that down the road. Let's jump into the next exercise. Okay, write a function that takes 2 numbers, say a and b, as arguments. If a is smaller than b, divide a by b. Otherwise, multiply both numbers, return the resulting value. All right, so once again, we're taking A and B. If A is smaller than B, so if A is smaller than B, that's our check right there. We're gonna return A divided by B. I think that's what they're wanting. Otherwise, you notice I don't write else here. Now you could write else, but this isn't really doing any. This function is not going to do anything else as far as anything else, as far as I know. So we don't really need to write it, because if we do the if statement, we're going to return that, and then we're going to stop the function. So we don't need else. It's just if this doesn't match, we're going to do the other thing anyways. So in our beyond the if, otherwise multiply both numbers A times B. Return the resulting value. All right, let's hope. Great, it worked. We could simplify it though. Oh, yeah. Okay, let's look at that. So I'm writing out all this if stuff, but technically we could shorten it to less lines of code. So what I'm going to do here is what's called a ternary expression. So if you have if-else logic, and there's not a lot to it, right? Like we're just going to return one pretty simple value. We're doing an operator on a couple primitive values. If we were going to do like, if something and then like tons and tons of code, then this might not be the way to go. But since it's pretty simple, let's try it out. So if A is less than B, right? If A is smaller than B, we're going to question mark it. So that's like, if, is that true? Question it. Then if it's true, we're going to return A divided by B. Then how do we get to the else? We do a colon. So that's the else, kind of the ternary at the end. We're going to do A times B. So if A is less than B, is it? Okay, we'll do A divided by B. Otherwise, colon, we'll do A times B. Okay, let's see if that worked. Nice. Great. All right, let's go on to the next one. Somebody's saying console log consoles are awesome. I like that. They are awesome. Okay. Write a function that takes a number as argument. Thanks, Grammarly. You're so right. An argument. If the number is even, return true. Otherwise, return false. All right, so we're going to put in here my number so we know. If the number is even, return true. Okay, so there's something in JavaScript called Modulus, and I might need to refresh, but I believe if we go like...
Oh, is this like the one that's like it gives you the remainder of something that's been divided?
Yep. So what Modulus will do, okay, before we go on, I think the percentage sign is the modulus. Is it cool if we Google? What do you think, Julia?
Oh, heck yeah.
Heck yeah, because this is what you're going to do if you go out into the world and the streets of code, like... Okay, let me just Google it better. You're gonna have to Google a lot. I mean, and over time you'll Google a little bit less, but let's look at this. Oh, okay, so they call it remainder. I called it modulus. Remainder operator returns the remainder left over when one operand is divided by a second operand. All right, so if we have 12 remainder 5, so it's like the expected operator is 2. Okay, so like we were taking 12 and we're dividing it by 5. We get 2 5s, we get to 10, there's still 2 left. That's why we get 2. With negatives, it's kind of like multiplication. We'll get negative at the end. This is going to return 0. So we're going to get, because 2 is going to fit perfectly into 4. Okay, I think I get this. I think I've got an idea. So if we want it to be even, I think all even numbers are divided perfectly by 2. So I want to do this. I want to say if it's remainder by 2, well, there's going to be 0 left over. Okay, so we're going to say if that divided by 2 is equal to 0, then we're going to return false. Otherwise, wait a sec. Return false. That's silly me. Return true. Okay. So if this number, it's even, if the remainder of 2, if the remainder of it divided by 2 is going to be 0, we know it should be even. Okay, let's give it a shot. Cool. And look at that. They simplified it again. All right. That is exactly what I was going to do next. We don't need to do all this extra stuff. We can just return this value because once again, JavaScript will evaluate this statement and create a value from it, and that's going to be true or false.
Asking if we can just wait for one moment while they finish up. And I did want to draw attention to, there's some good conversation happening right now about the ternary operators. And Julian asked, is it okay not to place any argument in the else part of the ternary?
It's I don't think that's gonna fly. It's basically gonna be like yeah, you can't. I believe. Let's Google. That's why we like to do it. I believe the answer is no.
I love the Googling. I also feel like being able to Google something is like a skill in itself. You know, I feel like I use SQL mostly for work, you guys. Some of you might know that if you've been to some of our other events. And for a long time, I couldn't even figure out like how to formulate in my head, like, how do I Google this like problem I'm trying to solve?
Yeah, it is a kind of a skill. Like if you kind of need to, it becomes easier as you learn more of the terminology, right? Because maybe at the beginning you're like JavaScript question mark, you know, and you kind of come up with maybe vague things. But also, what'll be helpful is, you know, if you're Googling, is to you know, Stack Overflow, if you get into more specific questions, might have a lot of things.
Are you personally active on Stack Overflow? Like, do you ask questions?
I've asked a lot of questions and I've answered less questions than I've asked. I will say that, but I mean, it's definitely a great resource, and I would say it's definitely a fun exercise to get into trying to answer questions. So my assumption is you can't, and I'm not seeing any examples where you can, but here's a cool way to figure it out. I'm opening the developer tools on Google Chrome here, and I do that by doing Control-Shift-I. And when you come over here, this is the console. You click on the tab console. This is like a place where you can like log things, you know. I mean, it's kind of going to be the same as, I think, if you just put in hello. But it'll also let you do JavaScript to evaluate it. So like, what is true? And we're going to return 2, otherwise return 0. All right, we return 2. So what if we just do true 2? That work? It doesn't really like that. Oh, yeah, this is crazy. So yes, you need the colon. Okay. I noticed that it didn't like our little thing, so I'm gonna say, oh, it did. Okay, that was weird.
Hang on. So Mike posted some in the chat here. I'm wondering if I think this would be a good exercise. Could you copy and paste this into your console and maybe sort of explain how you would
yeah, let's do it.
Fix this and make it work.
Thank you, Mike, for being vocal.
Yeah, we love this, guys. Don't be afraid to post your code in here.
Let it all loose. I like the declaration. Why does this not work? Let's get to the bottom of it. Oh, okay. Well, this is like Python. I believe elif is not. This is in JavaScript, so that might be your problem right there. I think
Mike also says that the alert needs to maybe be in quotes to make it a string, maybe.
Yeah, this isn't
But I like this
this code. It's
tactic.
getting more interesting by the second.
Mike likes code with flair.
Yeah, this is definitely some different stuff.
I like it though. It's a good way to think about it.
I do too. I feel like Mike's got a really like a lot of personality. And it shows in your code, Mike. So
yeah, if you work on a team, I feel like the other developers would be able to like recognize your code style like immediately.
yeah. It wouldn't take long. It wouldn't take very long. So if it's not a number, so this is interesting. Okay, so you know what? I think this might actually work. No, if the number is, oh, so here's the problem. You did 2 equals. So you want to do 3, so we can make sure that it is of equal type and equal value. I don't know what this is going to do. I assume that's just not going to work. I would say for JavaScript, you really want to stick to the 3 equals if you are trying to say these two values are equal. Unless you really know a specific reason why you want the 2, like you'll really know you got to do the 2 equal signs, stick to the 3. Okay, so still not happy. If this divided by 2 is equal to 0.
Mike also pointed out we should maybe like comment out his why does this not work at the
Oh,
top.
that's a good point. Wow. Saturday, guys. All right. Why does this not work? There we go. I wonder if it'll pop open the alert. I'm just curious. Well, I guess it didn't.
It's not going
I'm
to show
pretty
us.
sure it would.
If you guys were doing this like without all these test cases, like if you guys use like REPL or REPL.it or like anything like that, like I love sites like that where you can just sort of like, you know, play in a console. You would probably see it.
Yeah. Yeah. There, like, or Hacker Rank is one where you can do tests. I don't know if that's your thing with Julia. Like, I know Code Sandbox. You can kind of access more of those browser features. I'm not even sure if. Yeah, I wonder what it's evaluating. But so this not a number thing is interesting that Mike threw in. This is basically JavaScript will return this value when, maybe you did something like, variable crazy equals 2 times, pi. That probably will get you a not a number value. So not a number is when JavaScript tries to do some kind of mathematical evaluation and one of the values in it is just not going to work. So I think that's good for check if a number is even. Let's go on to the next one. Okay, write a function that takes a number as argument. If the number is a whole number, has no decimal place, return true. Otherwise, return false. All right, this one is interesting. So do that, and then so thinking of a good way to do this. I think there's a couple different ways. One way I could think of is we could call toString on the number, and then we could say contains. I think it's contains. It might be includes. I might have to check on that. Contains dot. So this is saying. Let's double check. We can Google it. How about this? Use a console. Let's do 1.2. So this is our string decimal, and then we'll say, does it contain? No. Does it includes? Oh, okay. Yeah, so we're gonna want to use this. So console's a fun tool, guys. Yeah, so that's not gonna work. So we're gonna do includes. And I could once again do this like if else stuff, but I think we've got the idea that we can keep things more simple with the JavaScript on one line. All right, let's see if this works. Please. Doesn't work. Doesn't like toString includes. It's a little bit cryptic. So we get 4, toString. Oh, I see. Let's add that. Yeah, there we go. Oh, I did it kind of hacky maybe, but they basically said if the bottom, yeah. So math.floor, let's look at math.floor. This is basically rounding down in JavaScript to the nearest integer, I believe. Yeah, less than or equal to a given number. So if we have 5.95, we're gonna get 5. 5.05, we're gonna get 5. 5, we're gonna get 5. Negative 5.05, we're gonna get 6. Negative 6, because we're going down. And they're saying, okay, so if you get 5, we're gonna take 5 minus math the floor of like 5.5, which is gonna be 5. So it's gonna equal 0. You might want to stick to something like this. Maybe it's more you know, it's more related to like math. Okay, it says math. The types that you're working with is what I want to say. You know, I mean, you can get creative and do string things. I kind of like the solution better. So, okay, let's go on to check whether the string contains another string and concatenate. Oh, so we kind of got some clues in the last one on how to do this. Oh, somebody said reverse it. You want that to return false. Thank you, Alex. So, all right, so we're going to have a function, write a function that takes 2 strings, say A and B, as arguments. If A contains B, append B to the beginning of A. If not, append it to the end, return the concatenation. It's weird. So, okay, if we have cheese and cake, we want to return cheesecake. If we have lips and S, we don't want to return lips, we want to return slips. JavaScript, just JavaScript. Think, therefore I am. We don't want to return think, therefore I am I. We want to return I think, therefore I am. All right, this one's getting kind of interesting. So I'm going to start writing out the ifs because I feel like there's more to unpack here, and maybe we can simplify it later. So A comma B. So if A contains B, if A dot includes B, we saw that includes method before. And methods, you know, you might wonder what's the difference between a method and a function. They're very similar concepts, but a method is basically a function that is part of a greater object. So a string is, in JavaScript, everything's technically an object because everything will have methods and properties, and this is the same for most programming languages. So every primitive type, a string, an integer, will have methods, which are functions available to it. So string's going to have includes, it's going to have, to concatenate it, substring. You also have the length property to include how long it is. So just a little bit on that. I see a question in there. What does it mean by A includes B? It basically is saying this will return true if A, the string A, has the word B in it. So if we have the word firehouse, doghouse, let's go with doghouse, and B is the word dog, then we're going to get true. But if we have the word doghouse and B is the word, carrot, then it's going to be false. Okay, so if it contains B, append B to the beginning. So then we're going to return B plus A, okay? Because with strings, you can just concatenate them with the plus operator. It's that simple. Otherwise, we're going to say A plus B. B append B, A. Okay, I think this is going to work. But it might not. Okay, sweet. Oh, okay. So they've got kind of a more old-fashioned way to discover this. So let's go back and simplify. So, it's really not that much to unpack. I think we can make this a ternary. and it'll be nice to look at. So we're going to do a ternary if A includes B. We're going to do that. Not. We're going to do that. So if A includes B, we're going to append B to the beginning. Otherwise, we're going to append A. We're going to append B to the end of A. All right, great, it worked. Now you'll see that they're doing this index of B equals -1. Like what? What's that about? So strings and arrays have this method called index of, and index of is returning like what is the position of this element in another kind of greater thing. So in a string, you would have, right, like let's talk about lips. If we get index of lips, JavaScript is a zero indexed programming language. So L is 0. We can get more into that later. I is 1. P is 2. And S is 3. It's going to return 3. Okay. And then they're saying, what if it's -1? Let's write that out. If it equals, oop. They say, do they not equal -1? That's what we want to do. Okay, so this is going to return 3. So this isn't going to work. What's this -1? Well, index of will return -1 if it can't find this in there. So that's how that's going to work. So we said if it includes B, that's the expression we want to evaluate. To turn that into this, we want to say if it does not equal -1, meaning it's found in there, it's a value. Okay, see, that worked. So they did equals -1 because their first was going to be A plus B. That was my last part. And oh, I don't have a semicolon. And then, so they kind of switched it around. Okay, let's go on to the next one. Find next higher natural number that is divisible by y. Write a function that takes two numbers, say x and y as arguments. Check if x is divisible by y. Julie, I'm curious, what do you think about me skipping ahead to some of the other categories? Because I don't want to miss out on anything. And if we have more time, we can always go back.
Yeah, definitely pick whatever you think is going to be interesting or a good example. Just let me know which one you pick, and I'll put the link to that one in the chat so it's easy for people to find the specific one.
Okay, perfect. Very cool. All right, so I think this one, let's try this out. Write a function that takes two numbers, x and y as arguments. Check if x is divisible by y. If yes, return x. If not, return the next higher natural number that is divisible by y.
What's a natural number?
That's a good question. I think it might mean an integer, but yeah. No negative numbers, no fractions. So this is good, this is not. So it's just basically, it's a non-negative integer, I think is the way we can look at it. So we're going to take x and y. Check if x is divisible by y. I believe we're going to use the remainder to see that. So using the remainder operator, we're going to say, okay, equal to 0. If the remainder of x by y is equal to 0, then we're going to return x. Otherwise, we might have to do something. So what we might have to do is do a loop, because we're going to have to kind of iterate over numbers until we get to the number that is next divisible by y. Okay, so let's take a look at this. So let's get into a for loop. So a for loop in JavaScript is a way to loop through stuff. You could do for variable I equals, start with x. +1 maybe. So while I is 0 divided by remainder of y does not equal 0. Let's look at this. We're going to iterate up one. Might clean this up in a second. So what's going on in this for loop? In a for loop, the first statement is kind of our initializing statement. Okay, we need a variable that's going to initialize the for loop. And we're going to say it's going to be x plus 1. We could iterate, we could start at x. I would say x plus 1 because we already know x isn't going to work. So as we go up, the next statement is our evaluating statement to say, like, how many times do we want to iterate? So we want to iterate until I remainder y. Oh, we don't want it to be not equal 0. We want it to be equal to 0. So we want to go until this is going to equal 0. Okay. And we're just going to kind of do that. It's almost like that's doing what we want. I'm going to do that and feels a bit odd. Let's see what happens though. Nope. Okay, let's take a look at this. It would be nice if it told us what failed and what didn't.
And I like how it spells oops.
Oops. Big ups to you. It didn't work. So if 123, we expect it to be 23. So for this equal plus 1, let's just say equal to x.
Kata in the, I'm sorry if I pronounced your name wrong, but in the chat is saying that you might need to maybe reverse the x equals 23 and y equals 1 argument.
Reverse the arguments. So if check if x is y, return x. Otherwise, and then we're going to go in the function declaration. Oh, that maybe. We'll give it a shot.
Oops.
Oops. It might not like this. So maybe what we need to do is just create like a and say 0. I'll leave it undefined. So we're gonna keep turning. You know what? We know what might happen. Okay, we'll see about this. We're gonna keep assigning this value. Or hear about this. Yeah, we're gonna assign it this value. And then we're going to return it. Now in a bit, I might decide we might need to use the, let's see about this. So here's what I'm thinking now. We are going to say, let's kind of talk through the logic here. So let's say this is like 1 and 23. So this isn't going to work, right? That's not going to equal 0. So we're going to move on to so this is going to be 1. And while this divided by y, here I'm thinking we might need to switch this up. Yep. That was that was the thing. That's code. That's street code. Okay, so
Dude,
if
these loops are so hard.
yeah, it's especially, you know, what's nice to have is like if we could console log, you know, that could kind of give us some tools to kind of see what's going wrong. But basically what was happening is for this for loop, we're trying to check what are we evaluating before we iterate. So we were evaluating if the remainder is equal to 0, then keep going. But it was never equal to 0. That was the problem. We already knew it's not equal to 0 up here, basically. So we were kind of being silly by asking it the same thing again. It's like, well, no, so I'm not going to do this, and then nothing's going to happen. But I needed to say if it's not equal to 0, while it's not equal to 0. So then once it gets equal to 0, it's going to stop. We're going to have incremented x enough times, and then we're going to return it. Let's see what they did. While that is not equal to 0. Oh, that's fancy. Okay, so basically they're saying they're just going to use this thing. So like while this is not true, we need to increment x, and then we'll return it. So if they come in as 2 and 2, like this is never going to happen because this is not true. So this loop will never run. A while is another loop where you just have one evaluating statement, and while that's true, you're going to do something. And they've also put it on one line because that's something else you can do with JavaScript. You could do, curly brackets like here, or we could have done like kind of a one-line thing like this. Okay, so that's let's look at arrays now. Let's kind of jump over to arrays. Sort an array of numbers in descending order alphabetically. All right, let's do alphabetically. Takes an array of strings as arguments. Okay, my strings. It should return the array with its values sorted alphabetically. Okay, so arrays have a sort operator, a sort method on them. So let's look at array sort. We're going to hit up Google. Gotta drink some water. A lot of chatting.
Yeah, hydrate.
Yeah, so this is fun. JavaScript, they're going to cheat for us. They have built-in sorting that's going to sort alphabetically for strings, as well as numbers. So we don't really need to think about it. Like we don't have to like write a function that's going to be like, A, B, C, D, like which one is, higher in the alphabet. We can just, let's see. And the other thing is, we need to see if the return value, oh yeah, it returns the sorted array. Yeah, note that the array is sorted in place. This is an important thing about JavaScript. So a lot of JavaScript methods will change the existing value, like the variable. So we have this variable myStrings, and if we strongs, if we return or if we say like variable myStrings equals myStrings dot sort, or let's change that name, sorted strings. Well, we could return sorted strings, but we could also just return myStrings because the sort method will alter the actual myStrings, and sorted strings, so basically it's going to return a new array, but the existing array is also changed. So if you wanted to not change the existing array and just create a new one, you would need to know that that's going to do this. So just something to look out for. Let's just go ahead and return my strings.sort and see how that works. Great. So easy. Sort an array of numbers in descending order. Return the average of an array of numbers. Let's do that. So how do we get the average? Well, might know from math that, you know, it's number of, you know, quantity of numbers. Let's see, sum, what do we call it? Like sum divided by quantity. You know, quantity being like how many numbers we have. We got 5 numbers. What's the sum of them? We divide it like that. Okay, so first, how do we get the sum? Well, so in our numbers array, let's say the sum equals numbers dot. Okay, we're going to do something called reduce. And what reduce is going to do is it's going to take a function. And that function is going to be us. Don't think I need anything there, but I might. It's going to take us, well, like, when you reduce an array, let's Google it. You're basically going to create a function that you're going to a reducer function where you're accumulating and you're passing that accumulated value on to the next iteration. So how would this work? Like you would take, this is basically going to add all of these up. Okay, so you got an array of 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Your function, you don't. So you can also pass in some more things, but the two you ultimately need is these two, and you're going to return. This is just going to sum it up. So you're going to like basically what this is going to do is the first one's going to be 0, and it's going to start with 0. That's the default. So it's going to be like the accumulator is 0, current value is 0. We're going to return 0, 0, 0. Then we're going to get to 1. We're going to return it's 0. Then it's 1. Now we have 1. Then we get to 2, 2, 1, 3. Okay. I think you kind of get a little bit about that, but let's go on to the example here. So you're going to return the accumulation plus the current value. And if you were doing a more complicated reducer, you might need to initialize this with a different, this second argument is going to be initial value. If you wanted to start it at 5, or you could reduce something that's not a number. Maybe it's a string. Maybe you're trying to create some kind of fun string. You could start it in a different way. But we don't need to, we just need 0. So that's the sum. Then we need the quantity of numbers. This one's way easier. We're just going to do variable quantity equals numbers dot length, and then we're going to return sum divided by quantity. Cool. So that worked. So it's also doing reduce. Oh, it's using an arrow function. Maybe it didn't like the const keyword.
Oh,
okay.
I really got some people in here who like those arrow functions too. So
it's what's hot. I mean, it's been around for a little bit, so I don't blame them for wanting to go like, you know, it's 2021. Like not using arrow functions is, I'll just say that. But you know, but let's see. So this one is so they had it so one line. So if we did the sum here, and then we did divide that by numbers dot length. So we're getting so we're going to use an arrow function because we can. Like I said, different way to do a function. This is an anonymous function. We can also do like a one-line return. So we don't need curly brackets. We're just going to return it right here. So this whole thing is the sum. And then we're going to divide it by numbers dot length. Okay, let's see if that works. Hey, that's not what I did. I deleted those things. No, whatever. But yeah, so that's kind of the stripped down way to do it.